What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Thursday. We are 2 days away from Virginia Tech going 1-0. I know we've been talking a lot of playoffs, but obviously the game is on the horizon and football will be played. And very excited to see this team continue what it's doing. We are going to talk to one of the most requested guests that we get every week, and that is Steve Kim, the Cane historian. K9 came, the Korean Cosell, you know who it is, and we'll bring him in here shortly. First, I want to talk about some folks that stay on top of the ratings, and that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
D, good morning.
Feeling good? You ready for the game tonight? I know you're fired up.
Yeah, man. Always, man. You know, Canes Hoops always gets me fired up. Got Elon tonight, so hopefully a nice bounce back opportunity after the loss against the Gators. And I will most likely be on the post game here. So,
post game Pete basketball, much more subdued and analytical, I got to say.
I mean, listen, it's something that I enjoy. So.
All right, man, let's get it going here with the man himself, straight from the West Coast, from East LA, Orale, Steve Kim. Steve, how we doing?
Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Yeah, I believe it's Steve Orale Kim. I don't want you to mess that up.
I apologize. How we feeling, man? You seeing some points on the board?
We have life. We are still playing meaningful football going into mid-November and Thanksgiving weekend. I guess that's all we can look for. I look at it in two ways with a lot of the politicking that is going on Twitter, social media about Miami's placement in the playoff bracket or the rankings. And I think there's, again, two things can be true at the same time. Number one, I do believe Miami should be a playoff team. This is a team that's good enough. It's heading in the right direction. But regardless of what happens this year, I still think that the staff still has to look and say, look, what happened against Syracuse, what happened against SMU in Louisville, we can never have that happen again. You can still look forward and look back. That's what the great programs do. And it's interesting. It's like with Ohio State, there are fans that they don't really enjoy last year's national title that much because they lost to Michigan. That's when you know you've reached the pinnacle of a program. But the reality is, for the really elite programs, which Miami has not been in a long time, the losses are worse than the wins are good because basically they all matter. So I still look, and I don't want to dwell on it because you still have football to be played. But in that offseason, that SMU and Louisville game has to be examined over and over and over again. That's the way it works at this level.
Yeah, just as you examine those games and look at what changed, you know, what are some of the things that you are seeing that gives you life and gives you hope that are different, like specific things that you saw, you said, man, I wish we had this a couple weeks ago or against Louisville.
Variation. And, you know, I saw your tweet or your post on CanesInSight, and I chimed in a little bit. I think it's interesting that Shannon Dawson says we have not changed the offense. And he basically made it a point to say, hey, out of 70 plays, we ran 2 trick plays. Yes, that may be true, but I'm going to repeat myself here. You can have the exact same system, the exact same plays, but the sequence and with how you run them in terms of formation and dressing them up and with personnel packages could change the whole offense. I don't think Shannon Dawson is lying when he says, hey, I haven't changed anything.
Well, Steve, did you hear how the question was asked? I mean, they said, "Well, were you in your office drawing up plays on the chalkboard?" He's like, "No, like I've had those plays." But to your point, I think the game was called differently.
Yes, look, you can get 10 different chefs with the exact same ingredients. They can come with 10 different dishes. Now, that's the reality, and you can be Chef Boyardee or it can be a Merrill. Depending on what you do and how you do it, it can change. And to your point, Danny, on your post, on the post-game rewatch, where you watched it on video and you get a different perspective than being there, here's what stood out to me when I watched the game again on Sunday night, Monday evening. there were plays where all three of Miami's wideouts were true freshmen. Malachi Tony, Josh Moore, and Dylan Upshaw. I have never seen that. The last time I can remember two freshman receivers playing at all together as true freshmen was way back in 1997 when Reggie Wayne and Santana Moss, who was at that point wearing number 48, were pressed into duty because they had a lot of injuries. They didn't have the depth. And then you add to it, guys, when Gerard Pringle's in the game during those particular plays, that means Miami is relying on four true freshmen at one time in a meaningful situation. That is unprecedented. And I believe Mario Cristobal and his staff have to be given credit for really hitting on their evals, because these guys are all contributing at different degrees, different factors, but they have certainly given the offense some life and some juice. Now, here's another thing going on Pringle. I mentioned in my post-game tweet in a post that I put up on CanesInSight that Gerard Pringle has had the same impact as a true freshman running back as Clinton Portis in 1999. I remember that year clearly because James Jackson had injuries. Yep. Najee Davenport was lost for the year. And every time Clinton Portis got the ball, stuff happened. But I don't think it's a perfect comparison in terms of the running style. Now, I hate to say this because I'm going to compare him to a heated rival, a guy that I hated, but one of the finest human beings that ever graced the face of this earth. His running style reminds me a lot of Warwick Dunn. Got the same type of size, the ability to skate at very fast speeds, but to make sharp cuts and to have a burst and a natural ability to make people miss. And every single time they get that ball, you get the sense something is going to happen. And the one thing that I believe that Pringle has exhibited more than any other running back, and this is where Shannon Dawson again will tell you, hey guys, I'm running the exact same plays, but with different players and results, vision. I think it's one of the most difficult things to really gauge in any running back is how much vision do they really have. Pringle has those goggles. He can see things on the backside and cut things over, and stuff happens. And I hope that he continues to become a big part of this offense. Also, everyone's talking about the trick plays or the gadgets, as I like to call them. Guys, do you remember about 4 years ago during one of the last years of Bronco Mendenhall? It was the year that Brennan Armstrong, the southpaw, was the quarterback. Virginia had this funky offense where they had three guys that could really throw the ball. And they were all on the field at the same time. And they would run a bunch of reverses, double passes with the lateral, stuff of that nature. I believe that the Malachi Tony as a thrower should be a constant threat. Yeah. Keep running plays that give you at least the impression he's going to throw the ball. Because, Danny, you mentioned it. Shannon Dawson said in the press conference this week, that was actually a second read on the pass play. It's supposed to be a deep post, but he ended up hitting Schrader. That threat to me is very interesting. So whatever you do, when you have a guy like Malachi Tony out there, consider him a second quarterback on the field. Just give these defenses something else to think about. See, I don't look at them as trick plays. I just look at them as football plays that advance the ball. And to tie this all in, Michael Irvin, great Miami Hurricane, maybe one of the greatest ever. He did his YouTube video on his weekly visit to Miami football on the sidelines. He had to leave early, had to go to the UFC show. But when he was at the game, he wrapped it up and he said, I just want to say one thing. The players are having fun again. They like these plays. They like having fun. They like scoring points. Again, to what Michael Irvin said that I referenced last week, hope can it dictate effort. And when you have fun, that effort will be heightened. And I think it's a different team that walked off the field at SMU a couple weeks ago.
No doubt about it, man. And I think when you talk about the schedule and what we need at different times, right? This schedule is a long schedule. It is hopefully a very long schedule when you add the playoffs in. I think you need kind of different things at different times, like the hammer running game that we had with Fletcher and Marty Brown both going at the same time. I mean, obviously it was very effective against Notre Dame, right? It was effective against Florida, was effective in that early part of the schedule. But now you get into these ACC opponents who are smaller, are not going to be as physically imposing where they're going to beat up a smaller back necessarily. I think a guy like Pringle gives you exactly what you need, which is, those explosive plays. And we've been talking about for a while. That Dunn comparison is a lofty one, but a similarity I would see is Dunn was not a change of pace back. Dunn was really a workhorse back in many ways. He had other guys that played with him, but he was at every down back in the way he played. And I think Pringle, going back to high school, this was like a guy that was getting 30 plus carries a game at times. So he's not like somebody that is like, hey, you put him for 15 plays.
Fletcher can be the TJ Duckett.
Right. Right. Exactly. Didn't FSU have a guy like that, like a running back / fullback, a big guy, like a single
they
back?
had William Floyd, bar none, who was a true fullback.
He was a real fullback, right?
And they also had D. Feaster.
Listen, don't get D started. He'll start saying Fletcher's a fullback. So
yeah. Well, one thing that was noticeable about Pringle, and this was on one of the passes that he caught, he crossed up a guy like Allen Iverson, just made him absolutely miss. He disappeared right in front of him, and that's another thing you have to judge about a running back. You could do the 40-yard time. You could do all these drills. Do you actually have wiggle? Do you have that natural ability to be slippery and to make people miss? And Pringle seems to have that much more than any other back on this current roster.
By the way, Pete, before you misquote me and I get in trouble, I am not saying Fletcher's a fullback. I'm saying Fletcher can – what I've always said is that Fletcher can do fullback things – and he can still run for 5+ yards of carry as a tailback. So I think in my dream scenario here, if we're talking about what is this ideal lineup, and I thought it might be with Lyle, but Lyle clearly was outplayed by Pringle, at least so far. You could have Pringle and Fletcher on the field at the same time, where Fletcher is more than capable of lead blocking for Pringle and not blowing people up, or you just hand it to Fletcher and he does what he does. He'll get 5 yards a pop. He'll wear down the defense. I mean, Steve, you've seen situations both at Miami and FSU and some other teams, especially like maybe more so in the 90s, where you had that kind of two-back setup where you have a big, powerful back that can block and be the.
I'm not trying to go back to the 90s, D, and I don't know that Steve is either.
What are you talking about? We were doing the fast break Charlie Ward offense with a week ago.
I want to, yeah. I mean,
you tell me, Steve, what you think about that whole concept.
Well, look, I'll never forget. I was actually invited. I went to a spring practice in 2022, Mario's first year back, and I saw Coach Solinger, Don Solinger, one of the great football men, one of the great football minds I've ever met, one of the great Hurricane coaches. And, we're talking, we're watching the thing, and he basically said, Steve, it's funny. All these teams now basically are rotating backs using a 3-man rotation. And Solinger laughs at you, Steve, I was doing that 35 years ago at Southridge. What's the big deal? There really are very few Ashton Genty workhorses now because of the way college football and the NFL kind of tie in together. Nobody wants a running back with 1,500 carries under their belt. If you go back to the Edgerrin James draft year, Bill Polian said we took Edgerrin over Ricky Williams. He had a lot less mileage on the odometer. So now kids, I don't think want to be the Barry Sanders, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson workhorse that I grew up with watching. They want to be they want to get enough touches to put something on tape. They want to be part of a winning team. They want to have fun, and they want to have some numbers, but they also don't want to be beat up going into the pros because they understand the collective bargaining agreement works against running backs. So everyone's going to rotate back. So Danny, to your point, I think if you are going to run a 3-man rotation, you have to have a hammer, a guy like a Fletcher that can pound, that can wear down defenses. Then you need a quick guy that can really go out there and create some explosive plays and make people miss. And you also need a guy that kind of fits in together, that can do a lot of those things and blend the two. And I think Marty Brown's played that role, although he's more on the physical side. So that is the trend, because if you actually look at the box scores throughout college football every week, I don't see a lot of running backs, even the best ones, getting 20+ carries anymore.
P, what you got over there? I cut you off last time.
No, I just, I gave you a shout out on the post game, Steve, because you're always on the established points, not the run wave, and that's exactly what we saw last week. I think you're going to be in an opportunity here against Virginia Tech where you can do something similar. Yeah. And then obviously, hopefully you bring that into the pick game. But I thought that you're able to still control the clock and control the game once you get it up. multiple scores, which is what we saw last week.
This is my hope. I know this is a road game. Virginia Tech, they might have some emotion of some sort with the new coach who's highly regarded. I think he's going to do a good job there eventually. But look, this is still Miami. As mediocre as Miami has been for the past 20 years, teams still enjoy beating us. They do. I mean, I've seen a couple of field rushings in the last 10, 11 months. It shows me that the logo still holds weight regardless of the records or the recent trends. But Blacksburg's been traditionally very difficult for Miami. Even the greatest Miami team ever on paper was 2001. They are an Ernest Wilford
yeah.
from being in overtime. That game could have been
Jaguars great.
Yes, and I'm thinking, wow, that was our best team we ever had maybe on paper, right? So the only time I could really remember us blowing them out was the 2014 game where Duke Johnson ran wild, right? And I think we beat them in 2018.
For years ago.
Yeah, so we have to play fast, and I would not clam up here, and I don't mean the logo of 2000, guys. Go out there and play fast, play at a quick tempo as you want, and go out there and do not get overly conservative. I know it's a road game. I know it's different. The crowd noise is going to be a factor and all that stuff, but go out there and use the exact same type of play calling you've seen or we've seen for the last 6 quarters.
Faith Family Football makes a good point, which says, Pringle looked good, but is it fair to say that he did that to 2 of the weaker defenses on our schedule? I think this needs to be said. I'll pull the Pete and bring some context here, which is 112th in the nation scoring defense was Syracuse. Then you go to NC State, 120th in the nation in scoring defense. Now, the good news, Virginia Tech sitting right there at 116th, right? So the biggest difference between maybe – not the biggest, the only difference, but a big difference between what we saw SMU, Louisville. SMU's 26th in the nation in scoring defense. Louisville's 33rd. So you're talking about much different caliber of defenses between SMU and Louisville and these last 3. But the good news is if you can play Virginia Tech, perform the way you've been performing, which I think to me is, you got to go over like 35 points, right? I don't know what the Miami's team over is in this game, but if you can get over 35, I think you're in pretty good shape as far as keeping the momentum going on offense. And now when you play a Pittsburgh, which is not quite as good defensively as at SMU and Louisville, but it's better than these last 3 teams, you have confidence rolling. And, whether you're building your confidence against a good team or a bad team, guys feel good seeing the ball go over the goal line, right? So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, the schedule is weak, but it's a good place to find your offense as you head into some more competitive games.
Danny, I think factually what he said is absolutely correct. The numbers are the numbers. The statistics bear that out. We did not play the 85 Bears. I don't think anyone's claiming that. But I've got to add a little context to that context. Coming off of that Stanford game, I didn't feel as though the offense really made a lot of strides. I mean, we were tied 7-7 going into it. And even after the game where you score a bunch of points, you're like, you had that sinking feeling going into SMU that if something does not significantly change, we could get tripped up. That's exactly what happened. Going into this particular game on the road, I just have a lot more confidence given the fact, again, you can have the exact same plays, but what I said for a couple of weeks was we need to throw a little bit more on early downs. Don't put Carson Beck in shackles by continually setting up 3rd and 8. Also, got to get the quicker, more explosive playmakers out into space. And then, this is the variable, create some fun and excitement that everyone will feed off of. I'm not arguing that we're not playing great defenses. That is not an argument. But I would believe that a lot of this is on confidence, about confidence and having momentum. Just my particular opinion, I could be wrong. The offensive unit seems to have much more of that going into Blacksburg than they did Dallas.
Yep. So,
by the way, Steve, we got to mention this segment, as always.
This Thursday segment on CanesInSight, always brought to you by the Cruz family. Hey, Canes fans, before you head out to Hard Rock Stadium, and unfortunately the season is over. It was a great season. We want to let everybody know, though, make sure all your tailgate needs, or if you're going to a party, going anywhere, you want to have a night out with the friends, do it safely. But, hey, Go to Jensen Sunset Corners. They have you covered with all the best wine and spirits. And you know what? And during the season, they had a deal. If you came in, you got a discount on all non-sale items. Make sure, though, you support this business throughout the year, whether it's football season or not. Jensen Sunset Corners, located 8701 72nd Street, Miami, Florida.
Steve, they're doing I'm looking at the Instagram right now because they tagged us in this yesterday. They're doing a giveaway right now. Go to Sunset Corners _ Miami on Instagram. They're doing a giveaway. You have to follow Sunset Corners on Instagram, tag one friend, and drop your prediction for the game this weekend. Closest score prediction wins 3 bottles. Looks like they got some bourbon there and some tequila. So go to the Instagram to check that out.
By the way, Saturday noon, Steve, we're going to miss you because we're going to be doing the watch party for that Virginia Tech game at Duffy's Tavern, right there on the edge of Coral Gables, 60-plus years, where everybody knows your name, the home of the Hurricanes, now accepting credit cards. I don't know where else you'd rather be. Steve, you were there multiple times this year. You've seen all the TVs. They got the outside setup, had a great booster event there. I'm going to have some more events at Duffy's Tavern. It's going to be a great time there with everybody watching the game. Canes Connection will be there. It'll just be a great time at Duffy's Tavern Sports Grill right there on the edge of Coral Gables.
Multiple televisions. They got the new flat screens. And if you want to smoke a cigar in between the games, they got an outdoor patio. You know, very affordable pricing. And again, big thing now, they take credit cards. They even take my Discover. Discover. You discover who doesn't take it, but they do.
Man, so Steve, national landscape, right? We're up to 13 in the college football playoffs. I don't think it was a great day of results for the Canes outside of the actual Canes game, right? And Texas losing was good. I don't think that was a big surprise. Texas is not a very good team. I know we were talking off air. Maybe Sarkisian moves on. That's been the hot rumor. You heard Desmond Howard say something to that effect in one of his Instagram posts. So, you know, we'll monitor that situation. But just overall, across the nation, what are you seeing in terms of, you know, just trends and things that might impact Miami Hurricanes making this college football playoff?
Well, I found it interesting what's going on social media, that the campaigning for Miami, even with those who aren't necessarily pro-Miami or media members that cover the team, but you look at the data, I wonder, though, if 25 years ago, that without social media, would there be any pressure on a committee of this sort? One thing that social media does, it gives everyone a voice, and it holds a lot of people more accountable more immediately. And the Notre Dame-Miami debate is a very interesting one, given the fact that I think both teams are actually among the top 12 teams in the country. I think that people have made it like, hey, only one of them can make it. My view is I would say both of them are more worthy of a playoff than a 5th or 6th SEC team.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Texas is still being considered, and you have guys like Kirk Herbstreit and other people saying, well, they're still in it. Here's the reality, and they could talk about they could have been this, or that. If you really examine their record, forget the loss to Ohio State. Good, close, hard game. Ohio State's a great team. They lost to a bad Florida team at home or on the road, but they got controlled throughout that game in Gainesville, right? Georgia's very good. I get it. Here's what I think is even more damning than those losses. They should have lost to Mississippi State, and they should have lost to Kentucky. The reality is that they're closer to being a 5-loss team than a 1-loss team. But the fact that they're even considered in the playoff picture really shows you the SEC bias, in my view.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we'll see what Oklahoma does here down the stretch. They've had a tough schedule. And so if they finish with 2 losses, I think just on a schedule strength standpoint, you get them in there. Ole Miss, I don't see it with Ole Miss, other than the fact that they only have 1 loss. So if they get knocked out by Mississippi State with this Lane Kiffin drama, I guess you wouldn't penalize them for losing in the SEC championship necessarily. But yeah, 5 teams from a conference that has shown no superiority over the rest of the nation this year. that seems excessive to me. I mean, Alabama got smoked by a 2-5 ACC team. Like, who is the big bad SEC team that you worry about when they leave the conference and play these out-of-state games? Texas lost to Ohio State. Florida lost to Miami. I guess Texas A&M did defeat Notre Dame, so that was the big good out-of-conference win. But it's not like these guys have been bad boys out of conference that you say 5 teams from the SEC get in.
Right. And look, the rules are not the same for everybody. And this is where I believe that Mario Cristobal and the staff, they had to have a realization. We're in the ACC. You get one mulligan if you're not going to the Charlotte in the ACC title game. SEC teams can have 2 or 3 losses and get an at-large bid. It's the reality. Big Ten, maybe, probably you can if your schedule's good enough. The ACC, short of winning the championship game, you better have 1 loss. It's not fair. Same with the Big 12, probably, although they're kind of jumbled up. But there's still a lot of football to be played, and I think the bottom line is this. Miami has to take care of their business, and I believe they have to do it emphatically. And this is why I always say it. Blowouts matter. I really hope moving forward, Mario Cristobal turns the page and say, guys, I am no longer going to limit us. If we can score 80 points a game, we should score 80 points a game every time. Damn these feelings. Because, again, it's a different set of rules. The metrics, they point that out to a certain degree. You want to get players involved, but also perception is reality to a lot of these people. And you want to create the perception you're a dominant team. The more you do it, I believe it helps you.
So Carson Beck, we've talked about him on the show. Where are you at with his performance and his trend line?
I think he's been rock solid the last couple of weeks. And when you put him in situations where he's allowed to throw on early downs, he's much better. And you get him into a nice rhythm early on, and you move the chains quickly. And I know this has been a constant source of debate on CanesInSight. I'm going to say this again. No one is asking to be full-blown Art Briles Baylor with tempo. But I think we should use it a little bit more and always try to get into at least 75 to 80 plays. Maybe that's not realistic, but I would say always the goal for Miami should always be at least 35 to 38 points. Because with this defense, they're probably going to win every game, right? Especially if you allow them to play downhill. You saw what happened last week, guys, with Jacoby Thomas, pick 6, it's 10-0. It almost felt like blood in the water at that point. The defense started to come downhill, and they absolutely swarmed C.J. Bailey, right? But with Carson Beck, if you allow him to take control of the game on early downs, and you control down and distance, and you can create play action opportunities, look, we know his struggles. The Louisville game was not a great look. In the SMU game, you take away that interception. I actually thought he played pretty well throughout much of the game. Carson Beck, you're paying a lot of money to. He's a 5th-year senior that's played in hostile environments. Going into this week in Blacksburg, look, he's played in Blacksburg many times. He has. Just look at his record in the SEC. A lot of hostile, loud environments. Don't be afraid of your quarterback.
He's one of the more, he's the most proven player on the team. As you look at the record, it's about, 32 wins?
Yeah.
I mean,
you have to. I mean, look, he's special. He's special. I think if he's going to continue we'll see these next 2 weeks, the confidence is growing, and I think the confidence in him, not in his teammates, is like that. That's one thing I've heard the last few weeks is that he was completely still in control of the room. No one had given up on the Beck experiment, right? Like I know as fans, people are like, oh, wow, after that 4 interception performance, then some of the other, struggles we've seen. But to me, man, you got to just let him continue being him and give him the freedom to within the offense to go out there and rip it.
KB says we ran up the score last year and it hurt us. I mean, I think honestly what hurt us last year, we don't have to overthink it. It was now we've seen a defense that's championship caliber and we've seen a defense that's not.
Wasn't
and
that a
the
necessity?
difference is pretty obvious.
I mean, I think we ran up the score last year because our defense couldn't stop anybody. The Cal game, we needed every point. The Louisville game, we needed every point. Virginia Tech, we needed every point. I mean, this defense, allows you to control games much easier with the lead.
Go ahead.
You get up by 2 scores with this defense, you can really start to manipulate how the game is played. And when you have pass rushers like Ruben Bain, they become even much more dangerous. And I thought the defensive backs last week played one of their stronger games.
Let's talk about the defense real quick. I want you to give some historical perspective. You've seen some great defenses. I mean, think about obviously the decade of dominance in the early 90s defenses, which might have been the best of all of them. You know, the early 2000s, really just 2000, 2001 with all those first rounders. 2003 with Will Fork and Vilma. Yeah, that was probably as far as like, it was a little unbalanced, right? Because the offense wasn't that good at that time, but the defense was loaded with first rounders. The Manny Diaz defense is not quite as talented, but very productive. So as you look at this defense right here, which is, as we sit, number 7th in the country in scoring defense, 15.4 points per game. And, you know, the pass and the run, there's really not much a difference. Probably better against the run because the run defense is just nasty, but still, you know, 10th in the nation in opposing yards per pass attempt in terms of opposing yards per rush. You're talking about where we at here. 4th in the country, 2.7 yards per rush given up, and some big time opponents that were shut down. Jeremiah Love, Pete's guy, Jaden Baugh. So where are you at on this defense?
A lot of people think he's
no, he's good.
You seem to be the only one who doesn't think he's good.
No. Now that we've beaten him and, you know, completely destroyed that Florida offense, I'll say he's good.
The truth comes out. Okay.
But, you know, obviously did nothing against Miami. So, but just in general, as you look at this Miami defense, Steve, how do you rank it historically from what you've seen, and what kind of defense are we talking about?
Well, the best defense that I've seen of the 2000s, I know a lot of people can say 2001, and I wouldn't necessarily push back too hard. That 2003 unit, which was anchored by Sean Taylor, who got absolutely robbed and stolen from when it came to the Thorpe Award, and you had guys like Kelly Jennings, who was the other cornerback? I think it was Antrell Roll. You had an unbelievable linebacker unit with DJ Williams and Vilma, and Rocky McIntosh was a young player at that point. Yep. And then your defensive ends, or defensive tackle was still Vince Wilfork.
In his prime. Right? Yeah, that was his last year.
You had a lot of NFL talent, and I've said that was a national championship defense that was absolutely wasted by an offense that's shut down by the end of the year. Okay, but this defense is certainly the best of the past decade. Because you're right, Danny. Even the Manny Diaz units, and I know people call it gimmicky. Look, Manny Diaz runs what he runs. It had good talent. It had some guys like Shaq Quarterman that played in the National Football League. Jaquan Johnson was an excellent college football player. He played in the league a little bit.
Mike Jackson
Mike Jackson is still making a living. You had RJ McIntosh was good. Kendrick Norton was a very good college football player. But I don't know if you have guys like a Ruben Bain or a Messidor, who I believe, looking at their overall play, they make an argument for being the best tandem of ends we've had. They're right up there with Kennard Lang and Kenny Holmes, in my opinion. So,
I think they're more dominant.
Right. The linebacker play has been okay this year. I think we're still looking to upgrade that room athletically moving forward with Heatherman. He has a certain type that he likes. But if you go back, the D'Onofrio defenses, I think, are all pretty forgettable and bad. None of those units, even though some of them, Danny, I knew you pointed this out, they had a lot of NFL guys, believe it or not, a couple of years. So I would say that this Heatherman unit has been probably the best of the past decade. And if you look at the actual numbers and metrics, they are elite this year. The Pick Six previews, he does a weekly update. Brent Cianquilla, very, very detailed. You look at the Miami defensive numbers, they're top 10 in almost every single category that's important.
Here's a crazy one, Steve, is when you look at the offensive side. Now, we all know that the offense, how much have we talked about the offense, is the reason why we did not run through the ACC, why we stumbled against SMU, why we stumbled against Louisville, why we're dealing with all these playoff scenarios, right? We know the offensive inconsistency is the reason for that. So I'm not trying to put a blind eye to what we've seen. But the crazy thing is, at the current pace, and we'll see if the average points per game go down or go up. I think they'll probably go up given the opponent at least next week, and then Pitt is middle of the road defense. This could be the third highest scoring offense in terms of like where they rank nationally since Dorsey. How crazy is that? You had the number one offense, obviously, last year by far in every category almost. You had the 24th ranked scoring offense with De'Ara King in the last year, De'Ara King COVID year, which is a high scoring year across the country. This year, right now, we're ranked 22nd, and we still got to play VTech and Pitt.
Yeah.
We're not good on defense. So interesting, just perspective on how bad we've been, aside from like a couple years with Dorsey and Cam Ward.
A lot of mediocrity. It's been the University of Mediocrity since about 2005. I mean, if you really look at it, that's the way I look at it. The last big win of the Coker era was when they beat Virginia Tech when it was a top 5 matchup Saturday night. That was the Marcus Vick game, and the defense was absolutely dominant. 2 weeks later, they lose at night to Georgia Tech. I think that was like the 13-10 or 10-7 game, and it was over. And from that point on, the program's kind of gotten off the rails. But you're right. Offensively, if you really look at our struggles, it was concentrated in that 3-week period coming off the bye off of Florida State, where we shut it down in the 4th, which is another reason why you never shut it down. You want to continually create big moments and good moments. And I've said your habits become who you are. 4th quarter, Florida State, I thought there was a carryover to Louisville. I know people don't believe in that. I personally do. So from the Louisville or the 4th quarter of Florida State all the way till about halftime of Syracuse, it was an offensive funk. It was. The rest of the year, the offense was okay. I know the weather played a part in September of being a little bit more conservative, but this is exactly why from the very first drive on Saturday, do exactly what you've been doing. Be loose, be fun, throw on early downs. Again, don't establish the run. Establish points.
I love it. And, it's crazy. Like Pete always talks about, Mario kind of raising the floor, and you got to see how it finishes, right? Because we got to see how this next couple games go before we even start any narratives, because the narratives can turn south very fast. But really the last 3 years,
there's no narrative. He's already raised it. We've averaged 7 wins a year for the last 20 years. Like, it's already been raised.
Well, I guess the amount of raising, we'll find out. But one thing that is clear to me is if you look at 2023, this is TVD's year, his last year where he threw 1 million picks, and we were one of the worst teams in the country in terms of giveaways. That's why we lost so many games, among other reasons. But in terms of scoring offense that year, we scored 30 points a game. We're 38th in the country, which doesn't sound like a lot, but again, historically is on the higher end of what we've done. Like, we've been 30 plus points a game the last 3 years, even with certain things not going perfectly, like TVD, for example, some of the issues we had last year or this year. And then of course, last year we were 43. We're the best by far. So it's like, I think at one area where the ceiling has been raised is offensively, which is if your offensive line is good, and even with the penalties, with the run blocking ups and downs, we're the best pass blocking offensive line in the country. I think PFF said it was by far. So, you're talking about a higher floor just by offensive line play. And I wonder if that could be the standard going forward, where you say, listen, there's always going to be things you have to fix. We'll eventually have to replace Heatherman. You always got to replace players. But with our offensive line being good every year, hopefully, pass protecting, our offensive expectations are at least at 30 points at a floor and then go above that. Is that fair to say?
With Cristobal's identity and his philosophy, you get the sense the baseline of the offensive line will always be very, very good. Even if you're not going to have future first-round draft choices or All-Americans, you're going to have a good unit. Danny, going back to 2023, if you review that year, Miami was both top 30 or 35 in both offense and defense. Generally, that equates to 9 to 10 wins. But it was one of those years we had an anomaly where a player got the yips to a point, it impacted the whole team. And so if you go back, if you take a knee against Georgia Tech, and there was no other play but to take a knee, I don't want to hear that Don Chaney had 99. I just maddens me when people say it was important for him to get 100 yards. No, it was not. So you blow that game. That game put a gray cloud on the rest of the year. It really did. And then we lose to North Carolina, where Drake May has a big second half. The game, if you go back to that season, we beat Clemson with Emory Williams. That overtime, Corey Flagg makes a great play. I remember thinking, maybe we should stick with Emory a little bit. But the next week, we went back to TVD. And I've always wondered, because the rest of the year, especially that North Carolina State game, our defense was really good for 3.5 quarters in Carter Finley. They were so afraid of TVD, they ran half the offense. But that year, I don't think Cristobal actually gets enough credit for, because I thought there was a second-year jump that was not reflected enough in the overall record. And if you just get average quarterback play in the second half of the year, that probably is a 9-win team. So I actually think Mario's doing a really good job of pushing this thing forward. But keep this in mind when I hear people say, yeah, but next year will be even better. And I say, hold on, you have no guarantee of that. We don't know who our quarterback is. Reuben Bain's not coming back. Mawano is not coming back. Guys, every year you have to maximize whatever you have, because there are no 3 to 4 year plans in college football. This is now a semester to semester sport.
Storm, back to you, Pete's boy. Yeah, it's the giveaways just with that TVD year. I went back and looked while you were talking just to make sure I had the stats right. We were 109th in giveaways in TVDs last year. With Cam Ward last year, and this is giveaways, so it's not just interceptions. We were 50th in the country, so not great, but a major leap forward from 109th. And then this year we are 43rd in giveaways.
Yeah, and going back to that 23, if you remember, right in the middle of all of that, we were losing to Virginia with less than 30 seconds to go. Didn't Borregales have to send that game into overtime? And that was a bad Virginia team.
Terrible.
And I remember thinking, oh, boy. And then that was the game that Mark Fletcher broke like 8 tackles in a 10-yard area.
Yeah, he
won the game. And I remember thinking, we're in trouble here. Like, you could just tell that this offense at that point looked very jittery because, quite frankly, they lost faith in TVD.
It's funny because I just brought this comment up, and JG Kane says, "Can he win the big games?" Is still in question. I think it's the opposite question of Mario. Mario's shown in his career he can win big games. Yeah. It's can you win the games that you're favored by double digits by consistently, right? Because they've done it already, here the last couple of weeks. But like to me, that's more what it is.
Isn't Cristobal really like the bizarro James Franklin? James Franklin had one problem. He couldn't beat Ohio State or Michigan. So that's 2. But every other game that they were supposed to win, they won. I mean, I give James Franklin credit in this sense. If there was a 12-team playoff the last decade coming into this season, I believe Penn State would have made that playoff 5 or 6 times. So they always had this very high floor where they're beating every other team consistently in the Big Ten, except 2 programs that at the end of the Harbaugh run and with Ryan Day, they were competing for national titles. So that's the next step. Look, if Miami wins the next 2 games and they finish off 4-1 in November, that now takes away another narrative that Cristobal and his teams fade in the last month of the season. You got to begin to buck these trends.
And to me, Steve, again, people don't want to hear this. Do you know what I'm going to say? You have the 15th most talent in terms of talent composition in the country right now. And I looked it up this morning, since 2019, the only team outside of the top 5 to win a championship was Michigan with the 14th ranked in the country, which is very similar to Miami. And actually, ideally, Miami would probably like to win games like that with Cristobal, right? But you aren't there yet. As Jim Harbaugh's Jim Harbaugh. It's a whole different animal now. So everyone else is in the top 3 to 5 in terms of talent. That's got to get better, Steve. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it does. But, Petey, let's be honest about Michigan. They had elite advanced scouting. They had the greatest advanced scouting of all time. I mean, their advanced scouting is what we should all try to shoot for.
Aspire for. I do agree with that. But to me, going to be a 10-winner program a year. Every few years, go win 11, push for the playoffs, go win 12 maybe. But that's I think what we are, which I'm happy with. And I'm
to Pete's point, so, and this is something that I used to do when I was on grassy.com, all right? To me, the recruiting rankings, I guess that's what they're going off, the recruiting rankings and the stars, right? Well, Danny, you've pointed this out. This true freshman class right here, I guess we'll call it the class of 2025, weren't they rated around 10 to 15?
Yeah, they've overperformed. They were 14th, I believe.
Right. I would guess that if you actually looked at overall production right now after 10 games of the college football season, I would say it's performing like a top 2 or 3 class. Don't you think, Danny?
No doubt about it. And I think that the talent composite ratings that Pete's quoting, I think are kind of garbage. The problem with these rating systems is they're bad with the portal.
Yeah.
Because
they are using portal rankings though.
But the portal, I mean, what Cam Ward is like the 5th best quarterback in the portal, and like some guy from.
But that's still weighted
they're
heavily.
Still figuring out
that's
the portal.
Still weighted heavily for Miami's favor, though.
Yeah, they're still figuring out the portal rankings. I think this is the best way to look at talent rate is NFL, and this is definitely true in the last 4 years. Top 100,
and they're still not there, by the way.
No, we're not. But I mean, I think what you're seeing though is a trend upwards with Miami's drafts. And I like to go by just, kind of over, like obviously it's a balance. You got to look at top 100 players, first round picks, and then just total guys that make the NFL. That's kind of the different categories. But if you look at Miami's last few drafts, when Mario got here, the only draft pick in 2022, so this was Manny's last year,
was Jonathan Ford.
7th round?
7th round by the Packers. And last year we had 7 guys. And to the point that I forgot to make is like when I would review these recruiting classes on grassy.com, I'd always said you have to wait till they actually graduate. I wanted to see the overall production. And so then it basically was I gave you a ranking of a 5 if you were like an All-American first round draft choice. You'd get 4 if you were like an all-conference type of player, 3 if you were a solid starter, 2 if you're a contributor, kind of a depth piece, and 1 if you didn't really do much. And if the overall class got a ranking of like 3.5, that meant that it was a really, really good class. And if you were right around the 2s, you had too many misses. So I think that's what we need to do. Look at the Mario Cristobal classes, the full ones that he had a chance to really recruit and develop, and then look 5 years afterwards, because that's how you're going to get a true gauge of how good these classes really are.
Yeah, I agree. And just everything has to account for the portal. And I think people are not really putting the portal into consideration when you say, okay, Miami right now, I would say it's not a top 5 recruiting team from high school under Mario. They haven't been. They've been top 5 once. But I would say they're probably a top 10 recruiting team under Mario in high school. And you just look at, I'm sure if you just added that up.
Danny,
the portal, we're top 3. We've had
this is the best portal class I've ever seen at Miami.
Better every year.
Keontae Scott, and shout out to him. I hope he gets healthy. He's going to have a great NFL future. He was playing at almost a Thorpe level award. He was one of the finalists.
Yep.
Jordan Poyser looks like he's going to be a really good player. He's been steady. He's improved.
Zechariah,
all of our cornerbacks have been good, the younger guys, right? Torrey's been solid. He's been okay. Maybe lost a little explosion, but I think he's been a pretty good player for us.
Teams aren't running on us.
Right. So I look at this portal class as one home run after another. Guys, the national scene, speaking of the portal, I know there's been a lot of talk about it. I was watching the Football Palooza at Coach JB's house, and sitting next to me was Sean King, former Tulane great, Super Bowl champion. We're watching the games. Miami fans, have we now fully gotten off Lenoris Sellers?
No.
I'm off.
I haven't.
I'm not off any. I mean, he's still going to get picked by the NFL. If he went in the draft right now with exactly the bad tape he has this year, he's still going top 4 rounds. So to me, if he's good enough for these NFL evaluators, he's good enough to play college football. And, people say Anthony Richardson. First of all, Anthony Richardson is a rapper. The guy has not seemed to have a lot of passion for the sport of football, whereas Sellers, everything you hear is the guy's character is like ridiculous. And I mean, to me, if a guy's good enough for the NFL, knowing that like 1%, less than 1% of people make the NFL, I think he's good enough to be in our program if the character's right. So
right, but
I'm
not so sure I'd want him as my starting quarterback unless you want to run a specific offense.
That's what I've been saying, Steve. It's gonna be altered, and I'm sure he's gonna want to go somewhere that they're gonna prep him for the next level.
I mean, he will be an unbelievable threat at the mesh point. He'll put defenders in conflict. Our short yardage run game will almost be unstoppable. But in terms of running a sound, efficient throw game where you're throwing routes at the next level and a lot of the air raid principles, he just misses too many layups in the end of the game, guys. Sean King was beside him. Lenoris, you got to throw the ball. Taking bad sacks, running out of bounds on fourth down. I'm thinking, where's your football IQ? Those are the things, like, I get it. You're going to miss throws. But that last drive, because I was kind of mixed on it, because I understand he brings a lot to the table. That last drive, I said to myself, I'd look somewhere else.
I'll say this, though, Steve. Mario and Dawson, if they could turn Ward from an undrafted free agent to
he
a
wasn't
first pick of the
undrafted.
draft,
Every time he says this,
he was a late round pick to undrafted. Why did he come? He was late round pick to undrafted. Why did he come back? Why did he come back to school?
He was never in a million years.
He was a late round pick to undrafted free agent. Projected. That's why he came back. Okay. Well, he came back to school
like
because
day 3, like 4th round, maybe 4th to 5th, and
late round, 5th, 6th, 7th round, undrafted. Who knows? He came to Miami, helped the soccer. Then Sellers could do the same thing. That's all I'm saying.
Petey, keep this in mind. If you go all the way back to the beginning of his college career, Cam Ward, an incarnate Ward, he was an air raid spread quarterback that was a gunslinger, and you knew he had passing instincts and real arm talent. Okay, so even at Washington State, where in his last year there, the Pac-12 was actually really good. I mean, that was a loaded quarterback conference, and they had a team in the college football finals in Washington, led by Michael Penix and DeBoer. That was a very competitive conference, but you saw signs, consistent signs that Cam Ward, if you gave him better weapons outside and better protection.
Well, I don't know. He had he had better weapons outside of Washington State than he had at Miami.
He had Kyle Williams. Who's his other receiver?
He had Josh Kelly, who went to Texas Tech and had about 1,000 yards, and he had Stripling his first year, who is
Dewan Stribley, who was at Oklahoma State. Yeah,
but there were more signs that Cam Ward was a natural passer, not just a thrower, because there's a difference. That there were certain throws that you saw with Cam placing it back shoulder. You're like, wow. You're like, whew. What I see is a lot of raw athletic talent and physical traits. I don't know if I see the craft with Lenore Sellers.
I'll give you, I give you that. I'm saying. And I give you that 100%. I see that. I just think there's so much to work. Like there is a
quarterback that I like. There is a quarterback.
Hold on. I know who it is. We're going to get the whole topic. Just real quick before we get off Sellers. Just talk to an exec. He compared him to Jalen Milroe with a little better passing, which I think is probably a good comp. Similar personalities too. Milroe is one of these like all-American kind of kids. I would take that, but I understand the hesitation, and we're going to get to your guy here. But Stormback U says NFL picks bad quarterbacks all the time. By the way, Stormback U is a great contributor. Yeah, they pick bad NFL quarterbacks. NFL picks bad NFL quarterbacks. If you're in college and a guy's good enough to play in the NFL, even as a backup, and you can't win with him, you're the problem, in my opinion.
I'm with you, but Danny, when you have Malware Tony, Upshaw, right, and you have Josh, we want more, and maybe even Loch Ness Trader as your base. I kind of want a guy that's going to get the ball to him a lot. I just remember when Kenny Kelly was overthrowing guys. I know one thing: the wide receivers on that team, they love Commander Ken Dorsey.
That's true. Good point.
They love Commander Ken.
All right, give it to us, Steve. Who's your guy?
Think of the color green and think of Mean Joe Green. Those are the hints.
Mestamaker. I knew it. This is your guy, Steve.
Mestamaker, the touchdown maker. I like him.
I'll tell you. So that coach at North Texas,
he's a riser.
Who I believe found Cam Ward and Mateer. Yeah. I don't know if this guy's not the hottest name in the quarterbacks or the coaching search, especially with kind of if you're the coach, it's a good market because there's a lot of openings, but there's not a lot of coaches available. Like if I am trying to get a coach, this guy got Cam Ward, he got Mateer, Mestamaker, who you mentioned. Not only is he putting up great numbers in North Texas, he is like and I'll let you talk about him more. He's like a physical traits machine. He's big. Yes. He's got an arm. And then the running back, Hawkins, he might be the best running back in the country besides Jeremiah Love as far as talent. He's a freak. So that guy's cooking. But anyways, tell us about Mestamaker.
I think he's a guy that has real arm talent, and he has plus athleticism. So you can run a little bit of +1. You don't want to overextend him on that. But he's got Gunslinger, traits that I think in a good way. He will get the ball out quickly. He'll make decisive, accurate throws. And I believe he'll have multiple years of eligibility. That's, again, I'm just a fan. But when you say, who do you like? Lenore Sellers, I'm actually a fan of, but I understand his limitations as of right now. And with the type of offense that I think Miami can and should run, I like Mestamaker.
And he can move a little bit. What do you say to the people who say, and Mestamaker can move? He can move more than like a Beck, for example, this year. But what do you say about the people who might say, hey, I want a quarterback that can run as a threat, not just a mobile throw to run, run to throw, a runner.
Again, I don't think Mestamaker's Michael Vick or Randall Cunningham. He's not a statue either. And the reality is those guys are freaks. The guys like Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Those are kind of like very rare. But it's been pointed out, if you actually look at the teams and the quarterbacks that have won national titles, Danny, how many of those freaky, twitchy athletes have won? You can get away with good athleticism. I don't think you necessarily need an elite athlete back there, right? Gunnar Stockton is a lot like Stetson Bennett. Bennett was a good athlete. I wouldn't say he was a great athlete, right? Last year, Will Howard was a good big athlete, but wasn't really all twitched up. A lot of his things were like about size and being tough, right? Alabama, when they won their national titles, Tua was somewhat mobile, but he was really a crafty pocket passer.
Yeah, it would have been the year that Hurts got them to the championship, and then he got out, and then Tua came in. I guess but he didn't win it. Tebow,
Clemson
Vince Young, Cam Newton.
Okay, now Deshaun Watson, I would say, is a plus athlete. Deshaun Watson was a plus athlete, but he did a lot of stuff in the pocket. All I'm saying is, at the quarterback position, what I want is functional mobility. Don't have to be Randall Cunningham again. Just have functional mobility, and once in a while, extend a play or a drive with a 6-yard run on 3rd and 3, and I'm good.
I want to get your thoughts on all these quarterbacks, Steve, while we're on the topic. We are a tampering podcast. Rock and Rant, appreciate your support. So still have hope for Sellers, but please keep Bailey out of anything other than an after-dinner cocktail. SEC bias is real as his crappy ACC P4 record. I'm a Bailey fan still. I think we kind of overwhelmed their front. Big test against Florida State. I'm going to watch that game very closely on Friday to see how he bounces back. That could be a disqualifying game if he plays poorly again. But where are you at on CJ Bailey?
CJ Bailey, I believe, has made strides. Last week was like a nightmare scenario for him because I think he wanted to do well against Miami, and Miami did a great job of driving down his NIL evaluation for next season. But again, it's one game. So the question then becomes, which guy is he? Is he the guy that tore up Georgia Tech or the guy that struggled against Miami? Sometimes, or most of the time, the truth right in the middle. He's a good, solid guy, and I still stand by that. He has a future at the next level. From a school that has produced a lot of NFL quarterbacks in the 21st century. But the question then becomes, did he play himself out of contention for even being considered by Miami? That I do not know. I'm not in the building. But CJ Bailey, by next year, no matter what program he's at, I think he'll be thought about as a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the NCAA.
Yeah, I think we're still both on Bailey. I like Mestamaker too, so I can't fight you on that. But I want to get your thoughts on one last quarterback that you would know being out there on the West Coast who generated a lot of headlines this week with the Portal talk, and that's Sam Levitt, originally from West Linn, Oregon. Shout out to Oregon. My dad used to wrestle against those guys. Told me he had a girlfriend in West Linn, but West Linn, Oregon, originally from there, goes to Michigan State, transfers to Arizona State. Goes to the playoff, tough year this year, foot injury. Where are you at on Sam Levitt, and what kind of upside do you think he might have in this system?
Well, coming into the year, he was considered a top 5 quarterback. I saw him in people think he was a future first-round draft choice. Look, you want a quarterback that can throw accurately and extend plays and have some athleticism. He fits, and he checks a lot of boxes. But now, once again, we're getting a quarterback with some physical ailments. Now, I'm not his doctor. I haven't looked at his MRI. What would his availability be? I think one thing's going to be key. I think we want a quarterback this year that can absolutely participate in spring ball. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I think that. So, again, I don't know exactly what his status is. But if you're Levitt, though, you have a pretty good situation there. Ken Dillingham is a very good offensive coach. Even JB gives him credit as being a good quarterback developer. So so as a quarterback, that would be your third year at Arizona State. You've been to the playoffs with them. This year's kind of ruined with the injury. But Levitt, in terms of a college quarterback that can run a functional, modern-day throw game and has enough athleticism to help you out there, he's good. He's solid.
I was going to get off this topic, but I can't. I know you got to. Well, what time you got to run? It's 10:03.
How about 7:10? I get to tell 10 minutes after.
All right, let's put a bow on this because this has been a hot topic. The comments always get fired up when me and Pete talk about this. People know where me and Pete stand. I think we're actually pretty similar on this one. I want to get your thoughts, which is, you were growing up in that quarterback era. We were getting guys one after another, high school guys that we signed and developed into great players. Since Steve Walsh in the supplemental draft back in 89. I want to say 1990.
89.
We've had one pick higher than the 5th round at quarterback, and that was Cam Ward. And my view of the situation, well documented, is, listen, if the portal's given us number 1 overall picks in Cam Ward, NFL quarterback who can win games in college like Beck, and then whoever we're talking about now, that's a good thing. Others are saying you can't live like this. You have to develop players. No one's going to want to come to your program if you're not developing high school guys. Where are you at with the model that Miami seems to be leaning into, which is potentially a new high-profile transfer quarterback every year?
It's great in theory until you get DJU. That's the reality. And that means your hit rate has to be out. If you go back to that quarterback U era, which was really architected by the great Gary Stevens, the greatest offensive coordinator in program history. It went from Jim Kelly to Bernie to Vinny to Steve Walsh to Craig Erickson to Gino Torretta. That was an unbelievable run. And there was a particular theory or theme there. Every guy was recruited and developed by Miami. I think they all basically redshirted at one point in their careers. And then they would not start till about their 3rd year in the program, maybe their 4th. Florida State had a particular run, which was very similar. It was from like Danny McManus, Chip Ferguson, to Peter Tom Willis, to Casey Weldon, and then, Charlie Ward and the rest of those guys. I think those days are pretty much over for the most part throughout college football at certain programs. But again, you better hit on every single guy then, because you saw what happened to Florida State. And so I have a question for you, Danny. You're out there. You're more connected than I am, and Peter too. How much of an upside, or what is the feeling inside the building on Luke Nickel and then Darion Coleman?
I will let D go first, and then I will give my thoughts.
Uh-oh.
All right. I want to hear Pete's thoughts. I mean, I think they like him. I think he still has development to do. He didn't get a ton of reps this year. You saw him get one pass here I believe in the NC State game, he got a pass towards the end. I would say there is a lot of people right in the building. So to say one view prevails is not really realistic in college football. And the more you're around it, the more you realize that there's a lot of opinions on everything, in any program. It's not like that's a sign of disarray. Every program has a lot of different opinions. But I think Miami likes how the last 2 years have gone. So far, we'll see how this one ends. But certainly last year, I think Cam Ward changed the trajectory of the program and was the most impactful Canes since, I don't know, Dorsey. I mean, he made a whole generation of new Canes fans. Carson Beck so far is kind of trending towards what you thought he might be. I don't know if they're being dissuaded to go back in the portal. Coleman will be a freshman. We don't know what we got till he's here. Nickel, I don't know if he's ready to play next year at the level that we've been used to the last 2 years. I'll say that, but I mean, I like him. I think he's a good player. He just needs some reps.
I think there's a reason they're going to go aggressively in the portal again, Steve. That my answer is that I don't know that there's I can't say I've personally heard a lot of excitement about him. Obviously you're in the middle of the season, but made some strides at the end of spring. I'm not sure it fully carried over into the fall that the way you would have wanted to see it. So I I don't know that and look, he's behind Emery right now too.
Right.
So that I think that should show you something.
Look, Emery's ceiling is probably being like a very serviceable starter, right? But I think there is a bit of a ceiling there that may not be high enough for the staff. But I just want to make this point. I understand the way the game is played. The portal is here to stay. The NIL is here to stay. They're tied in together. And if you're not playing in both pools, you can become, as I like to say, the Atari 2600 in a PlayStation world. You don't want to be Dabo Sweeney in a lot of ways in terms of that approach. But it is such an advantage, guys, and I think any coach will tell you this. When you have a returning quarterback that's been in your system, in your program with the same coordinator for 2 to 3 years, that understands as an upperclassman, I know this offense inside out. It is such an advantage. But I get it. It's a new way. It's a new era of college football.
I agree with what JoJo says. I think if you go with the sort of rosters Miami's had and you play a non-portal QB, it's one of these guys, you're looking at 6 to 8 wins.
That's the reality.
Yeah, we saw it with a less talented roster with a QB probably better, even though he wasn't good. TVD was better than these guys.
Petey, you know what's going to be interesting? Because I like Darion Coleman. He's a true gunslinger. He's a modern-day spread quarterback, but his size is going to be an issue. He's not really tall. But he's quick. He's twitchy, right?
It's not to me what I'm hearing, Steve. It's not the height that they're concerned. It's how much mass can he put on. Okay, that's more what it is to me.
With that said, Petey, I think if he is our starting quarterback in a few years, Mario has to be more run and gun and more wide open than ever. I want to see it. Because Darion Coleman, to me, is a quick, twitchy, up-tempo, spread him out, let him throw the ball, let him run around, make sure he gets out of bounds or slides. But that's going to be the quarterback that I find to be the most intriguing because of his profile and his athletic skill set and his arm talent. I'm like, we're going to have to change things for him. And if we do and we've hit on him, that kid can be a very, very exciting player. But again, does he fit what Mario wants? That's my question.
It's a fair question, man. It is a fair question. Steve, let everyone know where they can find you.
Well, first of all, we want to thank once again Jensen, Sunset Corners, and the Cruz family. And before you go out to anywhere, any type of event, whether it's a football game, baseball game, or a family picnic, make sure you head over there. The address, once again, 8701 72nd Street, a Miami tradition. And guys, you can find me on Twitter at SteveKim323 or on Instagram, Steve Orale Kim, and I'm on the 3 Knockdown Rule with Mario Lopez. Our show came back this week. I'll be on with Coach JB a little later on today, and I'm on Fearless with Jason Whitlock a couple times a week. And, of course, my favorite segment every Thursday with you guys.
The best in the business. Steve Kim, appreciate you.
Talk to you guys Steve. Later. Let's go, Canes.
Always good, man. Steve, very fit. He's always at the wild card gym, boxing, doing his thing. And if you consider yourself an athlete or just an active person, you know how hard it is to sit on the injured list with an injury or some pain. You might even try to hack your own rehab. But before you do that, if you want to get to your optimum performance and settling for less is not an option, call the experts at University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. That's uhealthsports.com. Cover your game with the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Oh, one more before we get to the next segment here. Talk about the rare triple win, which is if you want to play some fun games on your phone, go to KashKick, KashKick, one of the biggest apps in America, over 4.5 plus average rating on the App Store, 1.5 million plus downloads. Get all your games consolidated, whether it's the games you play, your kids play, whatever, on one app. While you're playing, you make extra money on your side. It goes right to your PayPal, totally legit. Money on the side from advertisers just for playing games. It's that easy. And then while you're making money playing games, the American Cancer Society receives an equivalent donation from those advertisers from just for playing, again, the KashKick app, the Play It Forward campaign, KashKick in the App Store. The rare triple win with KashKick, KashKick. Always good with Steve, Pete. He He switched it up a little bit. He wasn't, we usually sing from the same songbook on the Portal quarterbacks. He was putting a different perspective on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion here moving forward. But yeah, I think all signs point to them going back to the Portal here, D.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's probably where they go. That's why we're tampering so much. And look, maybe Luke Nickel wins the job. We've seen teams bring in Portal quarterbacks, and the Portal quarterbacks don't start. So who knows how this whole thing goes? Also injuries and everything else. It's a.
I mean, look, he is a Hurts, Tebow, Cam Ward mix. So there's always the chance.
He showed it all on film. You could just cut the film up, put it right next to those guys, and you'll see all those plays. But yeah, man, big game for Hoops tonight. Just getting back on track.
I wouldn't call it a big game. I would say that it's an opportunity to get back right.
But if they lose, it's a big loss.
Yeah, but this is not a
how
big game.
Elon? Like I always struggle with basketball.
I'll look it up right now. The only reason it's a big game is you can send Jen Strawley back to Elon with a big fat L. Man, someone who really, really tore this athletic department up.
Those guys aren't doing too well between her and Diaz and Blake James. None of them are really.
They're 3-1. Right, they lost to Marshall by 7. So I guess they kept it relatively good. Now, I will say they've scored 99, 92, 89, and 95. So it looks like they can put some points up on the board. Although the 99 was against Belmont Abbey. So not sure about the talent on the other side there. Yeah, they have a guy, Chandler Cottrell. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. 24.5 points per game, 7 rebounds, 26% from 3. So looks like he does the scoring on the interior. But yeah, it looks like they can score it.
Yeah, finished last year losing 8 of their last 10. So not a team that's on fire. I always have trouble with these mid-majors because you don't know which of them are actually good at this time of year. It's they all kind of had the same record. You don't really know.
And we're so scarred from the last couple of years where these games were actual potential losses for Miami that I do know what you're saying. But yes, seeing what I see there, I mean, they're scoring 90 plus a game. They can't be terrible.
Yep. Rocco says, no worries. We have Malachi at QB. I still think Malachi should play more quarterback, not actual quarter. I mean, it's Malachi's set. It's not going to be like he's actually Beck's backup or 2 quarterback system. But if the guy's trusted with the ball in his hands, you could put it in his hands. It doesn't have to be really a gimmick. He could throw it away if it's not there. You trust the ball in his hands to make decisions. And I think that's a whole different layer than your trick play, throw the ball to this wide open guy type player. I think that's. Well,
I think this offseason there's going to be a lot of thought into how that's incorporated more because yes, you're starting to see it more here now, but you give an offseason to an OC to really see, man, this could be part of our identity, and I think it changes how you approach the game there. Ralph says, don't get your hopes too high on Lucas's first year hoops beat. Hey, I've said the entire time, best case scenario to me is you sneak into the tournament as an 11 seed. Maybe one of those play-in games. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm having a fun time watching them compete because that just hadn't really been the case the last year and a half.
Yeah. Even the Florida game, I mean, it was a game for a while. Missed opportunities. Maybe it wasn't I didn't leave that game thinking man, these guys are playing a whole different sport. I mean, they were obviously a better team, but it wasn't wow, man, we were just like little kids against grownups. It didn't feel like that watching that game. From a physical standpoint, I thought it was mostly matched. Florida just was better at it and had more depth and better shooting. Just, they weren't shooting it particularly great. They honestly, Florida kind of looked like a better version of what we are. From what I saw, not obviously better. Their top 10,
guards weren't shooting it well either. Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee. So
they missed a lot of free throws too. Yeah, that Lee wasn't as good as I thought.
The kid number 7 who came off the bench, the Euro, hit some big shots for them. He really saved Florida in some stretches there. He's hitting some deep threes.
Yeah. No, they obviously they have good players. I mean, number 10 to me, That guy is the real. What's his name?
Haw,
Hoff.
yeah, Thomas Haw. Yeah, he should have left last year. He would have been a late first round pick.
Maybe it'll be lottery pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year. But no, I'll be out there. Will you be touching wood today, or will you be sitting in the season ticket with
I will. I will. So
wait, touching wood or with a Reese
yeah,
PA?
Wood.
What does a Reese PA think when you leave him out there in the seat?
Well,
and you're touching wood.
Listen, he comes with me most of the time. We'll see what happens tonight. I'll say this. The guy who said yesterday he's sick, I think it was D-Train 323 or something like that. He said he's sick about it. That's why I told you take some medication, man. Go get some antibiotics because we ain't stopping.
Oh yeah, we're covering basketball, baseball. Miami Angels Share Society says, D, what do we know about Canes baseball commit rookie Shepard from Las Vegas, shortstop, really talented guy. I think he's probably the one in this class because the top two guys in Miami's baseball class, which is the number 6 ranked class, just signed last week. We did a video on it with Sebastian Font going in more detail if you want to check out the archives. But the top 2 picks with Gio Rojas and Lombard, those are like threats to go number 1 overall. So they're most likely not going to make it to campus. You're going to be talking about them as top 5 picks, although they are Miami signees. Shepard's the next one up, and he's like a top 5 round type pick. So that's in the area where maybe he comes back, maybe he goes pro. He's a shortstop from Las Vegas, left-handed swing, really good defender, just a really talented guy. So he's the one. If he does make it on campus, and there's a chance he does, he would be our highest rated signee by a good amount. So that's kind of how you look at that rookie Shepard scenario is, can they get him on campus? Because if they do, he'll be an impactful type of signee. So a lot of Coleman talk in the chat. Darion Coleman, who, I want to talk to Balin Trujillo as we get closer to signing day. I know he watches the show, and he's deep in the trenches with his boy, Darion Coleman, who's trained since he was a kid, kind of attacking the naysayers. I mean, Darion Coleman has not thrown a pick this year. I think he's like 20-something touchdowns, 0 picks. He's in the playoffs right now. So doing everything he's supposed to do. The comp, I know I've talked to David Lake about this, and I can see it. Jennings from SMU. There's some similarities there between Jennings and SMU and Coleman. Obviously, Jennings beat us, went to the playoffs last year. Didn't play well there, but came back and is winning some games. Marcel Reed, maybe in the I'll say most optimistic is the wrong way to say it, but like a good projection would be a Marcel Reed, maybe. Not as much of a runner, maybe more of a thrower. They're built not that much different. If you look at like Reed next to Coleman, both play behind big offensive lines, both have good running games. So I could see those two being comparable if Coleman keeps developing. Maybe Coleman more of a passer.
Yeah, it's hard for me to make that comparison if they're different players. I think that maybe body type, but I don't see that at all, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Reed runs more. Although I saw Coleman in the state championship game, he was running. So
I don't think you want him doing that though.
No. You're not going to design too many runs. Texas A&M's offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, who Miami fans remember destroying Al Golden and D'Onofrio early in their tenure when he was a quarterback for Kansas State. To me, him and Morris from North Texas, they should be the guys that everybody's talking about, I think. Like, if you want to say getting the most out of different kinds of players, winning big-time games. In North Texas's case, just finding big-time, like legit NFL players and producing with them. Those would be the two guys I'd have circled and underlined in my coaching search.
I'm telling you, if Nick Rolovich gets another opportunity, he's been a head coach. He had things going well at Washington State too. As long as people aren't scared away by what got him fired, then which is that he didn't want to take the vaccine. That's a guy I would hire as, maybe North Texas, they lose their head coach and Rolovich comes in there and you keep it as a quarterback friendly sort of system. So he's another one I would look at. Or for a big time OC job.
JP saying Desmond Reed out for the season is huge for Pitt to help beat him. He was dangerous. I just did a Google search. I haven't seen anything about Desmond Reed being out. You hope he
got hurt.
I hate injuries.
It didn't look like a good injury when we saw that.
He was jogging on the sidelines like he's been banged up, so I don't know. He is a great player from Miramar. I mean, again, we've told the story. I actually sent his film to a coach friend who was at the G5 level at the time. I'm like, dude, you need this guy. He goes to Western Carolina, then goes to Pitt. I've heard different things about, do we want Pitt to beat Georgia Tech? Pitt to Georgia Tech only helps us with the very narrow ACC path, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't think is going to happen anyways, right? Isn't that path requires SMU to lose twice or something?
No, SMU would only need to lose one out of the next two, I believe.
But they can't lose to Louisville because they need to beat Louisville, right? So,
dude, this is the trigonometry now that we're getting into. I don't think they need to lose both. Maybe I'm wrong.
Here, hold on. So my guy Taylor Walls, he might be in the chat actually. I think I saw his name. So he broke it down on CanesInSight, the path to the ACC championship. It says obviously we got to win both games. Pitt must beat Virginia Tech. Then
Pitt must beat Georgia Tech. You mean?
Yeah, Pitt or Georgia Tech. But look at this. He says Virginia Tech. He's talking about pass to the ACC out of 512 possibilities. Virginia Tech winning gives us 187 pass. Do you want to talk about trigonometry, Pete? What are these guys even doing? Shout out to Taylor Walls for trying to do this. Okay, so if Virginia beats Virginia Tech, then we need Louisville to beat SMU, and then North Carolina to beat Duke. So he says basically root for Louisville and UNC. That's it.
This reminds me of the playoff conversation, man. It's out of our hands. Let's just go win 10.
I still can't even think about what this means. Okay, so here's another one. Canes win out. That's obvious. Pitt seems to have to beat Georgia Tech in all these scenarios. Virginia Tech beats UVA next week. I don't know about that one. SMU loses last two. Again, I don't know about that one. Louisville and Cal. Duke loses one. I don't see that happening. There's just too many, man. There's too many, I think, just permutations. I'm more concerned about the path to the playoff. Obviously, I'm most concerned about winning two, which we've talked about. But part of me says, excuse me, if Georgia Tech beats Pitt this weekend, Pitt probably is going to quit. I mean, they're out of the ACC. Their fan base is not
They didn't show up last week, so.
And the fans were out. That was game day. So a lot of those fans were demoralized because they just said, all right, we're actually not good. We saw what happens against Notre Dame. They lose to Georgia Tech. Now they're really demoralized. And I think you're playing two demoralized teams. And I hate to say it this way because it's a kind of a weak attitude. But if we're talking about style points, when you play two teams that have quit, or at least have just their seasons are done when you play them, it's easier to run the score on them.
You know what the argument's going to be though at that point, D. Oh, well, that Pitt team gave up after Notre Dame cracked them. It's not the same. Not the same team. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, it could be.
Prepare for that.
Let's still, I think some people might say that. Others are just going to say they're going to look at the final score and they're going to look at the final score of the NC State game. Where we were better than them as well. So it's interesting, man. This is we're back in the coast. The coastal is dead, but we're still doing these calculations, man. These coastal calculus. We're still doing all this stuff.
Hey, the only calculation I know is 1 + 1 = 2, man. Let's go get 2 more dubs.
Let's get 2 more dubs. And you want to get some outerwear. It's Christmas shopping time. It's cold season. I guess you call that winter. Fall and winter. It is cold. It's holiday time. You're going to be buying some outerwear. So shop all styles at the Miami Hurricane Team store, MiamiHTS.com, or the store right across the street from the University of Miami next to the Thesis Hotel. Look at all these cool designs. Use promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item. All kinds of deals on the website as well, MiamiHTS.com. Look at this, man. I'm thinking about going to Pitt next week. I'm game time decision, but if I do, I got to stop by the team store and get this one right here. Look at this. This is a sweet bomber jacket right here.
I'm sick.
With the old school logo.
Yeah, that's awesome.
MiamiHTS.com, promo code INSIGHT20. All right, Pete, I will see you at the game. Or I don't know if I'll see you. I don't know because I can't get into your section at the.
Oh, you'll see me. I don't know.
I'll see you. I won't greet you.
We'll...
I need a special pass for that one. But anyways, man, good show. Steve's the best. We'll be cheering for the Canes here against mighty Elon, the high scoring Elon Phoenix. Mm-hmm. What a weird name. Their team name is the Phoenix.
Listen, you know that? Yeah, I did because my buddy from high school played baseball there. But yeah, listen, that's just what Mario's doing for our program, man, helping it rise from the ashes.
Sit, baby. Elon Phoenix rising from the ashes. Miami with Mario Cristobal. Hopefully finish that rise, man. It starts this weekend with Virginia Tech. Me and Pete will be out there at Duffy's, and you'll be on the post game after the basketball game, possibly. I'll try to join you if I can. I'll be coming back from the game myself, and yeah, we'll keep this thing rolling tomorrow with Lance Roffers, the professor, brought to you by Canada Financial. That'll be fun too. So appreciate everybody's support. Remember to like and subscribe. Almost 1,400 on the live. Go Canes.
Go Canes.